A liberal white woman says she got delivered from Trump derangement. Let's take a listen. Hello, good people. It is Todd Shannon, data scientist, social commentator, getter of buckets. And today we are going to delve into this interview from this liberal white woman from California who says her words that she had Trump derangement syndrome. She says it's real because she had it. And listen, liberal white woman from California. Those are the conditions for peak Trump derangement. So if this woman can come out of it, then anyone can. Now, when we use the term Trump derangement, some people just think we're trolling and that this is just some pejorative that we throw out to, kind of like liberal tears, something we say to make fun of leftists. But I honestly and sincerely in my heart believe this. Trump derangement is a real thing. It just happens to be kind of something that also functions as kind of a quick insult. And I don't use it typically that way. When I use it, I mean, these are people who have an irrational fear or irrational perception of who Donald Trump is. And what more proof do we know or do we need than to just listen to the droves of people on the left saying that Donald Trump is, quote, literally Hitler, okay? I don't even need to explain why this qualifies as derangement because, the actual Hitler killed like millions of people for no reason. And Donald Trump, to my knowledge, has not killed a single person for no reason. So, no, he's literally not Hitler, okay? It's just derangement. But what we're going to find out through listening to this woman's testimony is the many layers and the many kind of difficult issues that come along with the so-called Trump derangement, like separation from close family and friends and other things, the media sources and other things that you listen to, and what actually turned the tide for her when she started to realize, wait a second, I think I have a problem. And unfortunately, I think it will be the case for many people that they will need to experience something like she experienced in order for them to snap out of it. But without further ado, let's get right into this because this woman's testimony is fascinating. So we'll listen to a bit of her story.
When Trump got elected, the media that I consumed was CNN, NPR. I used Facebook, I used Instagram, but I didn't realize how much my thinking was controlled by all of these sources. Now looking back, it's very obvious. But Facebook, I think, was the biggest culprit because it enabled these echo chambers where I was talking to like-minded people and people who were far to the left of me, but no one to the right. And there was a group called Law Mamas, which has gotten a lot of attention over the years from various people because it was like this incubator of just radical progressive ideology. And early on, there was what's interesting is the woman who's now working under George Gascon, who is Los Angeles County's district attorney. He hired this woman, Tiffany. She's one of the Law Mamas. And she was this abolitionist. She wants to abolish the police, sort of criminal defense attorney that he's put up into the highest rank. I think she's his chief of staff now in the district attorney's office. And I think that that's just perfectly representative of the mindset of this Law Mamas group, because we were all talking about anti-racism and all of this really radical, woke, progressive stuff before it hit the mainstream.
All right. So I want to put a pause here because I think this is so important to recognize and to acknowledge, because what she's saying is that she's recognizing that she was in an echo chamber. She's recognizing that the media sources that she consumed had a profound impact on the way she thought about Donald Trump and contributed to her, quote unquote, Trump derangement. And I can't tell you how many people that I talk to, and either friends, family, or my circle, that don't think they are impacted by the media sources that they listen to or their immediate social circle. And I just want to put just to give you a couple of examples to emphasize how incredible your media sources are, or how important your media sources and your social circle is. First, let me start with the social circle. So hers was this Law Mamas group, and she said they were so radical that the one of the women that was participating in this, she was out here talking about some abolish the police type nonsense. And what's crazy is that they were in that little social circle, in that little bubble, and she was saying, abject nonsense like we should abolish the police. That'd be a good idea. And one of the impacts of being in that sort of situation is that when you say something completely unhinged and absurd, nobody pushes back. And this is what causes kind of the proliferation of just really diseased thinking. And if you say, well, this was a special case, this lady's different, it doesn't happen. I can tell you, I can give you dozens of examples. I don't know about dozens, but I can give you several examples of people that I know personally who have done similar things. For example, I remember during COVID-19, there was a preacher that I know personally. I know this person personally, and if I said his name, people would be mad. This preacher was on a Sunday morning. He was preaching at one of his services, and they were having service outside because during COVID, you weren't allowed to gather in, in your sanctuary, or at least even if you were, many people didn't think it was prudent. So they were having kind of an outdoor service. And it was during the time where the Trump administration had recently said, okay, well, here's the guidelines. If you want to start meeting again in your church services, here's the guidelines. It gives some CDC guidelines. This is how you stay safe. This preacher, I'm not kidding you, he literally said that the reason why Donald Trump said he wanted to allow people to go back to church is because he knew that black people, like to go to church, like to worship, and they wouldn't be able to resist going to meet and gather. And they know that if they would go and meet and gather in churches, that we would catch COVID and die. Now, I'm paraphrasing, okay, but that is 100% the essence of what he was saying. And I have the actual audio clip to prove it, so don't try me because I might post it, okay? This is what the man said, that Donald Trump wanted us to go back to church so that black people can catch COVID and die. And I actually reached out to him on Facebook and I said, brother, I heard you say that. And I got to tell you, that's one of the most incredible things I've ever heard. Can we talk about that? And you know what he said? No, I feel strongly in my position and blah, blah, blah. This is a Church of God in Christ preacher. Okay? Just know that. This is the consequence of living in an echo chamber. When you say absolutely ridiculous and absurd things like that, no one pushes back. And no one in his social circle actually said, Pastor, that you sound kind of like a nut job. And then maybe he would have had someone say, maybe someone could have suggested to him, Pastor, I don't know if you know this, but more white people go to church in this country than black people. And oftentimes, a lot of the white people that go to church are elderly. So that's the prime demographic to get COVID and die. And there are many, many more of them than the black people. So if you're saying that he wants black people to go back to church so they can catch COVID, he would be also killing a lot of white people in order to do that. And I just kind of feel like maybe maybe feel like that doesn't make any sense. Maybe we should talk about that before you say that on a Sunday morning. But there again, I can't tell you the number of people that I've, once again, people in the black church, because your social circle and the media sources that you listen to, they affect your thinking. CNN, MSNBC, NPR. But I can tell you that on Facebook, I saw after Donald Trump's assassination attempt, it was almost exclusively black people in a black church that I saw on social media saying, oh, it was staged. Again, complete abject nonsense. The person that actually shot at him was killed. Another person at the rally was killed by the gunman who intended to shoot Donald Trump. So you think they out here killing people on purpose and staging murders of innocent people so that Donald Trump can win an election? Do you know how stupid you sound? But when you in these bubbles, these things go unchecked. So I just wanted to say, this woman who is an attorney, she's not a moron. She's not uneducated. She doesn't lack critical thinking. She's acknowledging, hey, these social circle situations and your media choices, they do affect your thinking. And if you think that they don't, then you are deceiving yourself. But let's let her continue.
And I just thought it was normal. I thought we were really smart and we were, on the cutting edge of policy in the United States. And I was so much more intelligent and morally superior to everyone else, and really humble too. But my dad, he has always been conservative and sort of an unapologetic Republican. He left California around 2017 to go to Idaho, and it really hurt me. And I didn't understand the political reasons behind it or the financial reasons behind it. For me, it felt like he wanted to go be a Republican in this very Republican conservative state, and he wanted to have all of his guns. And that was sort of my thinking about all of it. And it was very upsetting to me. And I thought that his support of Trump was, I believed at that time that Trump was this racist, horrible, demonic person that he was being painted to be by CNN and NPR and my contacts on Facebook. That was the only information that I was receiving. And so, as I wrote in my post, in 2019, we got into an argument, my dad and I, on Thanksgiving. And my dad was saying something about the deep state. And I just said, I don't remember what I said, but it wasn't nice. And I told him he was nuts. And I thought
you probably thought
nuts.
He was like this conspiracy theorist, tin hat wearing, aluminum foil hat wearing guy who's like, oh, it's about the deep state. And I'll tell you something too. There was a time, Julie, where I was more in your camp along that. Like I'd hear this term deep state and it sounded so sinister. And how could that possibly happen in America? Well, guess what? If it can happen anywhere on earth, it can happen here because we're all human beings. And there are corrupt human beings and there are good human beings.
I just want to pause there. So there again, one of the negative side effects, of living in an echo chamber is that when you hear true information, it sounds weird. It sounds strange. I'll give you just there again. I just want to give you another example of this. I can recall several situations just talking to people and having them being shocked by information that I was sharing with them because they didn't know that it was happening. I told one of my friends that in 2020, for example, one of the reasons why the people were so upset and protesting and why people had a hard time moving on from the election results is because there was clear and obvious cheating going on. He says, well, that's a bunch of nonsense. Trump tried all this stuff in the courts and they didn't, right? This is what he was saying, right? This is typical. If you only listen to left-wing media, this was all you ever heard. But I said to him, I said, in Pennsylvania, they literally changed the laws in the middle of the game in direct contravention of their own state constitution. So they didn't change the laws in the way that they should. And then they did so in an illegal manner. And they allowed all of these mail-in ballots that wouldn't otherwise have been able to be counted because they were supposed to segregate them and they didn't. And he was like, that didn't happen. And then I sent him the article and then it was crickets. There was an actual article that showed that that's exactly what happened. And it's incredible to me that he didn't know this. I mean, it's weird because, I live in this, world where I consume this information. And so this was like, I'm just like, well, I mean, everybody knows that, right? Everybody knows they did, weird things with the election laws and the mail-in ballots, and that we've never done that before because it's generally not a good idea, and we've known that for decades. But apparently, that wasn't the case. So the point is that, uh, you know, when you live in a certain, bubble, uh, true information sounds like conspiracy, but it's not. And that's what she was experiencing with her dad. But it gets better here because this is where it gets really juicy.
And so, but this is I'm seeing you're painting this picture of a Thanksgiving, and daughter and dad get in a fight over the deep state, and it's almost it's becoming a very common story.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, we had, I said some terrible things to him that I absolutely regret and I've since apologized for. But we stopped speaking. We stopped speaking for a good year and a half, 2 years. And I lost significant time with my dad because I was so emotional about my position with respect to Donald Trump and the deep state and politics. And I let that dominate my mind and my emotions. And instead of prioritizing this family bond, this relationship with my father, which is the most important relationship, one of the most important relationships in my life, I prioritized politics. And it makes me sick to sort of look back and think about that. But I know so many people who do that.
Your story, it happened in my family as well. My mom voted for Trump, and there were other family members who simply could not forgive her for that. They found it unforgivable, where I thought, come on. At the time, she was, 87 years old. She believed what she believed. She was a conservative. Let her vote the way she wants to vote.
Okay, so now I'm going to bring you in close here because this right here is, to me, the most important part of the video. This young woman is explaining that she had such a sharp interaction with her father that they stopped speaking for 2 years, almost 2 years. And then Michelle Tafoya, who's interviewing her, says, similar things happened in my family. And then she said, well, my mom's 87 years old. Let her vote the way she wants to vote. I think we really have this wrong. When we say things like, we're just letting politics, come between us. It's like, it's just politics. I just want to frame this for you because I really do think that this is the wrong way to think about this. Let's just frame it the way it is. One of my family members only voted for like the most evil human being ever, who wants to kill women by denying them, autonomy over their bodies, and they hate migrants. He hates migrants. He hates black people. He's a racist and a sexual abuser, and they voted for him. And he's also a felon, and so. But that's not a big deal. I mean, why? That doesn't say anything about who they are. That's not a big deal. We are trivializing things that are not trivial. Okay? If all those things are true, if they are true, then that's a real legitimate reason to cause friction in a relationship, even with close family. That's a real thing. So I want us to really, if we frame this properly, we have to understand our mentality about this stuff is about 20 or 30 years past its due date. It's stale, it's old, it's rancid. It's the way politics used to be, the way we used to disagree about politics, where it was like about, hey, how much social services should we give to poor people? Should we give them a lot of welfare or just a little bit of welfare? Or we're talking about marginal tax rates, right? We're talking about, I don't know, different things that actually were trivial. They actually were trivial. But now we're talking about like baby murder in the 9th month. We're talking about the genital mutilation of children. We're talking about the supposed, Hitlerian reign of an evil dictator called Donald Trump. That's what we're talking about. This is not the same situation that it was 20 years ago. Okay? There are real consequences. These are real weighty moral issues. And the reason why it's so important that you have it right, that you have the right information, that you do not ingest lies, is because if you get it wrong, it will cause you to look at your family members, your friends, long time. It will cause you to look at them differently. If it doesn't outright cause you to fall out with them, you will severely have significant, let's say, challenges respecting their judgment. It's important. Now, I've been on the record. I'm going to say very clearly, it is such an obvious and clear lie that Donald Trump is, quote, literally Hitler. Okay, it's to me for anyone with sound judgment, you have to ask yourself like a serious question: how come everyone loved Donald Trump up until 2016? How come Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton was kissing his behind up until 2016? Oprah Winfrey kissing his behind up until 2016. Up until 2016, when he became the Republican nominee for president, all of these white people and all of these other black people as well, these white liberals and these black leftists who are now swearing he's the worst person ever, why were they all kissing his behind? Donald Trump's been famous for like 4 decades, closing in on 5. He's closing in on 50 years of being famous. And all of a sudden, now he becomes the worst person ever when he was in, basically all-time classic movies like Home Alone. Donald Trump's been an icon he was an icon that everyone loved for 30, 40 years, and then all of a sudden, is that not fishy to you? So I know we can sit there and say, well, this is not about, this is just, we shouldn't let politics come between us. No, what we shouldn't let lies come between us. That's what we shouldn't let. We shouldn't let falsehoods and people who speak those falsehoods, we shouldn't let them off the hook. And there's so many of those people who lie to you every day. And it's not even, the thing that I find really strange is that it's not even a secret anymore that they're lying. Like they lied to the Biden administration, this last administration. They lied to you. They lied to you about Joe Biden, about his health. They lied to you about Kamala Harris and her supposed responsibilities at the border. She disrespected you by saying, well, I don't have to explain anything to you. All I need to do is point at Donald Trump and say, well, he's a bad person. That's why you should vote for me. So, well, why aren't you a bad person when you lied to me for almost 4 years about, Joe Biden being, with it and him being, coherent and not senile? I'm not even going to get into the Russia collusion garbage. I'm not even going to get into all of the lies that we've been fed over and over and over and over again about Donald Trump, supposedly his dealings with, I don't know. I can't get into all of them. But the point is that the people who have been telling you that Donald Trump's evil, Donald Trump's a racist, the American people have soundly and resoundingly rejected that. And maybe just for a moment, you should stop and think about it and ask yourself why that is. This woman is giving us a blueprint to understand, you know what, this isn't what they say it is. And so she gives that little caveat about her father and her relationship, which she has since been reconciled with her father. Thank God for that. And she realized that her father was not a weirdo conspiracy theorist, but that the deep state is a real thing. I don't have time to go into that. But now I want to go into when it started to change for her, when the tide started to turn a little bit for her.
I have 3 little kids. They're now 10, 8, and 5. And at the time, my baby was 9 months old. and the older two were 5 and 3. And these policies that kept them out of school, that kept people separate from each other and sort of terrified everyone out of human connection, were really harming my children. And I watched my 5-year-old, he looked like he was becoming depressed, like a 5-year-old child. And I was not able to work, obviously, without childcare. And so I started, it took me a while to get to this point. Because at first I was scared too. We were bleaching our groceries and being ridiculous because that was what we were being fed by the media. So I started to speak out publicly in the fall of 2021. And the reaction and the responses that I got from my social community and then from broader, the government, was really eye-opening for me. It was the first time where I sort of like stepped out of the tribe and said something that was not aligned with the accepted discussion or the accepted discourse. Like in that Law Mamas group, I suggested, hey, like, why don't we strategize a way to convert our elementary schools into childcare facilities so that we can actually get our kids back into school? And when I said that, I had like 100 women come after me as this racist, granny killer. It was the first time anybody ever called me racist. I said nothing about race, but apparently at that time, the desire to put children back into school was racist.
And here is where she starts to see the scam that powers Trump derangement. You see, anytime you disagree with the modern left, instead of explaining why you're wrong, they just start saying why you're a bad person. You're racist. You're a bigot. You're this, you're that. They don't explain why it's not okay to mutilate the genitals of a child in the name of so-called gender-affirming care. They say you're a transphobe. They don't explain why, we shouldn't have our kids, masking up and, going through these ridiculous gyrations and being out of school that is harming them socially and educationally. They'll just say, well, you just wanted to kill grandma with COVID, right? And in her case, which is the Trump card, the ace card, the Trump card, no pun intended, which is that you're racist. This seems to work for any white person, and it seems to work for most black people who have some sort of guilt complex about them not growing up in the hood or something like that. I don't know. But black people who are saying, if they say, well, you're not down for the cause or whatever, I don't know what they say. You're Uncle Tom, you cooning right now. This is what they do. They don't refute arguments. They just say, you're a bad person. And this is the entire strategy of the left. And she saw it firsthand, and she started to recognize this is a scam.
For whatever reason.
Whatever.
So these insults that had been used against Trump and Trump supporters for the previous 4 years of my life were suddenly now being lobbed at me. And I'm going, well, I'm not a racist, but all these people are convinced that I am. And they're talking about me as if I am. And that was eye-opening. And then sort of long story short, I ended up suing LA County Department of Public Health. And they weaponized tax dollars. They've got a $2 billion budget. And they used that to come at me in legal and personal ways.
Sound familiar? This is back in 2021. This is before the Trump lawfare got, in full gear, which it did in 2023 when they tried to arrest a man for nonsense, for some fake charges. This, E. Jean Carroll, this, deranged woman accusing him of sexual assault in broad daylight at some department store, 20-something years ago, way past the statute of limitations. They get laws rigged so that she could resurrect the charge and have it be tried in civil court because it was way past the statute of limitations for it to be tried in criminal court. But they fixed the law they introduced a law specifically so that this would allow her to do this, interesting timing, so that they would at least allow her to accuse him and have him be civilly liable. That's just interesting. So do you see the pattern here? Lawfare, personal smears. Oh, we don't need to explain why we're right and you're wrong. We can just say, you're a bad person because you want this. And she experienced it firsthand. Now, she goes on to explain that it was at great personal expense. As a matter of fact, let's let her hear. Let's let her say it for herself, because I think it's worth hearing from her. But unfortunately, this would be the case for many people, and this will be the only way that many people will learn. Unfortunately,
to see what's unfolded and to react accordingly. Do you know anyone else who has?
A small circle of people who I know. But what it took for me was real serious personal suffering and witnessing the suffering of my children. That is what it took for me to open my mind and change my mind. And had I not experienced that level of suffering, I don't know if my mind would have changed, if I would have come around. And so that makes me nervous, because there are so many people I know who are otherwise intelligent people, but they still have this Trump derangement syndrome, which is real. I had it. I know what it feels like.
Yeah.
And all they can think about is abortion and in issues that, I'm sorry, in California, you're never going to have to worry about that. We now have a constitutional right to abortion from start to finish of pregnancy. But they just can't think about anything else. They don't think about the economy or their own children. And so I don't know how to reach those people.
And that, my friends, is where I want to end it. I have been asking myself, how can I reach people who have their minds warped by the mainstream liberal media, by the constant barrage, 8 straight years of nonstop lies? How can I convince you that you've been lied to, and that the friction that is causing in your relationships and the trepidation that you feel about a Donald Trump presidency, when we've already had him for 4 years and everything was actually pretty good. Things are actually pretty good under his first term. How do I help people understand that without that sort of leadership in place, and at least without keeping out the leadership that that many of the people who are Trump deranged are voting for, how do I convince you that that's the right way to go without having something like this that's happened to this woman, something that it causes you great personal loss? Because I have a feeling that Christians in particular don't understand that the left is at the bleeding edge of trying to push Christianity out of public life. I don't really understand why people don't take that threat seriously. They've been saying explicitly that that's what they want to do in various ways. They've been trying to push our compliance with their false ideas. They've been trying to push those standards on us for years. And I've listened to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez say explicitly that we are using our religion as a cloak for bigotry when we do not accept LGBTQ, people in their lifestyle. I've seen the lawfare where they try to go and they try to ruin a Christian's business because they don't this baker that you've heard about him many times probably, where there's 2 gay guys going to his bakery and they said, well, we want you to bake us a gay wedding cake. And he refuses on conscience and says, I'm sorry, I'm a Christian, I don't want to do that. And they sue him. And the whole reason why they did that is so that they could sue him, so they could ruin his business. They could have easily gone somewhere else. I don't understand why you think that's an idle threat. Why, if you go over to Europe, in other places, they're literally locking people up for telling gay people that they need to repent. There's a woman who was. We don't even necessarily even need to go over to Europe. There's a young black woman out of New York City who was protesting abortions at an abortion clinic, and she's going to go to prison for a couple years because they don't allow you to protest outside of an abortion clinic. They don't allow you to do that. They'll put you in federal prison. As a matter of fact, I'll try to find a link to some of that information in case you want to know. They're already doing that now. You could go in a church and you can protest all you want. You could go. You can stand outside of a church. You could protest all you want. You could do all types of unsavory things. But when it comes to the lefts and the progressives, sacred cows, they will put the kibosh on you pretty quickly and put you in prison if you do something that they don't like. And so these are not idle threats, and these are not, again, trivial moral issues. And so that's the thing that I've been trying to ask myself for years. How do I get my people to snap out of it before it starts to cost us significant freedoms? And I don't want that. And I want there to be unity. And the church is supposed to be the people who can do that. People of God are supposed to be the people who can have, because we have a common standard, but we have to be willing to reject lies and deceit and to listen to one another when we bring the facts and the receipts. So that's my plea, my friend. What do you think? Do you know someone suffering from Trump derangement that might need to get delivered like this woman did? Do you think that's a real thing? Or you think that's just some fake thing that conservatives say to try to smear people who disagree with them? You let me know in the comments, right? Or better yet, if you're a person who actually suffered from Trump derangement and you were actually delivered yourself, I really want to hear from you because I want to understand what that process is like, and maybe you'll help someone else in the process. And if you're new to my channel, I appreciate you listening this far. Please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, friends, God bless you.